"Babe, don't embarrass me tonight, okay?" That's what Dylan whispered to Emma just before they walked into his parents' big family dinner. The words stung. She had dressed nicely, brought a gift, and practiced being polite, but now she felt like a problem before the night even started. Still, she smiled and walked in, trying to push the feeling aside. The dining room was large, filled with expensive decor and well-dressed people. Everyone was already seated when they arrived. Dylan's parents stood to greet them, but Emma noticed right away how cold his mother's hug was. His sister barely said hello, and Dylan's ex-girlfriend was sitting right beside him, smiling like she belonged there. They sat down. The questions started right away. "So, Emma, what exactly do you do again?" Dylan's mother asked, with a fake smile. Emma explained briefly about her work, but the replies were full of hidden insults. "Oh, that's sweet," his sister said. "Must be fun not to have any real stress." Dylan laughed along, never once defending her. Instead, he leaned closer to his ex, chatting easily while Emma sat silently. She saw the looks passing between them, the smirks. Something felt planned. This dinner wasn't just awkward, it was a setup. Then Dylan said it, right in front of everyone. "She's not like the women we usually date. She's just not that impressive." Emma felt the heat rise in her face. She looked around the table. No one seemed surprised. Her heart pounded, but she stayed calm. Slowly she stood and picked up her glass. "I'd like to make a toast," she said. The room went quiet. She looked at Dylan, her voice steady. "Thank you for showing me who you really are." Then she turned to the man at the head of the table. It was the CEO of Dylan's company. "It's a pleasure to work for someone who actually values intelligence." Gasps filled the room. "I started this week," Emma added. The CEO nodded. "Emma's resume blew us away." Dylan's face turned pale. Emma smiled, set down her glass, and picked up her coat. She didn't wait for dessert. The CEO stood with her. "Need a ride?" he asked. "I'd love one," she replied. And just like that, she left. Emma sat quietly at the long dinner table, trying to stay calm. The room was full of well-dressed people, all talking and laughing. She didn't know most of them, but they all seemed to know each other well. Dylan, her boyfriend, sat beside her, smiling and joking with his family. Across from him, his ex-girlfriend was seated, looking comfortable and confident. Emma found it strange that she was even invited, but she didn't say anything. Not long after they started eating, Dylan's mother turned to Emma with a sweet smile and asked, "So, what is it you do again, Emma?" Emma answered politely, telling her about her job and what she worked on. Before she could finish, Dylan's sister jumped in with a laugh. "Oh wow, that must be so easy. You probably have so much free time, right?" Emma blinked, unsure how to respond. She smiled politely and said, "It has its challenges." Dylan's mother nodded slowly, pretending to be interested. "It's always nice when girls find something to keep them busy." Emma realized what was happening. They were mocking her without being direct. The questions kept coming, always with fake smiles. "Do you get paid well for that? Is it more of a hobby or a real job?" They were trying to make her feel small, like her work didn't matter. Dylan didn't say anything to stop them. In fact, he laughed along, making her feel even worse. She glanced at him, hoping for support, but he just smiled and kept talking to his ex, who was sitting way too close to him. Emma noticed how often Dylan looked at his ex. They shared little smiles and quiet comments. The way they acted made her feel like an outsider. It was clear now, his family liked the ex, and she was probably invited just to make Emma uncomfortable. Dylan leaned over to his ex and whispered something that made her laugh softly. Emma saw it all. She felt like she didn't belong, like she was just there to be compared and picked apart. Trying not to let it show, she kept her posture straight and stayed polite. But inside she was hurt. She came to this dinner hoping to be accepted, but instead, she was being judged and laughed at. She started to feel less nervous and more clear. They thought she was weak. They thought she would sit there and take it, but they were wrong. Emma wasn't going to let them break her. Something inside her began to shift. She looked across the table at the CEO, who was watching everything closely. He gave her a small nod, almost like he knew she didn't deserve this. Emma gave a small smile back. She didn't plan to fight them tonight, but she would not forget this moment. The room felt colder after the last comment. Jokes turned sharp, and smiles no longer felt friendly. Laughter came at the wrong moments, like when someone said something meant to hurt. Every glance, every word was a comparison, one she wasn't meant to win. They kept bringing up past memories, old vacations, funny stories that didn't include her. The ex nodded along, laughing like she still belonged there. No one stopped to think how uncomfortable it might feel for someone new. Instead, they acted like it was perfectly normal. Then came the remark that made everything clear. "She's not like the women we usually date," said his mother, not even trying to hide it. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even quiet. It was said proudly, as if Emma should feel grateful just to be at the table. The words hung in the air, and no one tried to take them back. Laughter followed again, but this time it felt cruel. Dylan didn't defend her. Instead, he leaned back and added, "Emma should just try being more humble." His voice was casual, but the words cut deep. She turned to him, her voice steady but cold. "That's what you think?" Without looking at her, he said clearly, "You're just not impressive." Silence. For a few seconds, no one said anything. A fork hit a plate somewhere down the table. Even the ex stopped smiling. There was no misunderstanding, no way to explain it away. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't teasing. It was meant to put her in her place. Right there, in front of everyone. She looked down at her plate, untouched. The food no longer mattered. Neither did the fake smiles, the polished table, or the expensive wine. What mattered was how easily he had thrown her under the bus, how proudly he had joined the others in making her feel small. There was no anger in her expression, only understanding. This wasn't a family that cared to know her. This wasn't a boyfriend who respected her. All of it, the dinner, the smiles, the invitations, had been for show. What they didn't know was that she wasn't the same quiet girl they thought they could talk over. She didn't need to argue, and she didn't need to stay. She had nothing left to prove, not to him, not to them. The moment had passed, and a new one was coming, one where they'd regret underestimating her. A quiet moment passed. Then Emma slowly stood up from her seat. Everyone at the table looked at her. The clinking of glasses stopped. Conversations faded. All eyes were on her now. She held her glass gently, her hands steady. A small smile played on her lips, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'd like to make a toast," she said calmly. The room stayed silent. Dylan leaned back in his chair, looking proud, as if he expected her to thank him or his family for the evening. Others waited, expecting something polite and ordinary. But Emma had no plans to pretend anymore. She looked at Dylan, her voice clear. "Thank you," she began, "for showing me exactly who you are tonight." A few people shifted in their seats. Dylan frowned. He didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. "Thank you for reminding me not to waste my time on people who smile while cutting me down. Thank you for the way you stayed quiet while others mocked me. Thank you for showing me I don't belong here, and that I never needed to." Dylan opened his mouth to speak, but Emma didn't stop. She turned her gaze toward the man sitting at the head of the table, the CEO, calm, powerful, quiet, but watching everything. "And to you," she said, raising her glass slightly toward him, "thank you for giving me the chance to work for someone who values what I bring to the table." Murmurs spread through the room. Dylan blinked, confused. "Wait, what?" Emma looked at him, her voice still calm. "I started working under your boss last week. I was hired for a new project. You didn't know, because you never asked." The CEO nodded slowly, his face unreadable. Then he added, "Her qualifications were impressive. She earned her place. We're lucky to have her." Dylan's face turned pale. His parents looked from Emma to the CEO, unsure what to say. Even the ex stayed quiet, her smile gone. Emma took one final look around the room. "I won't take more of your time," she said. She placed her glass back on the table untouched. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She simply picked up her purse, straightened her shoulders, and walked toward the door without another word. The sound of Emma's heels faded as she reached the front door, but the room behind her was frozen. She paused, turned slightly, and said one more thing, not for Dylan, but for the people who thought she didn't matter. "I wasn't planning to say anything tonight. I came to support him. But since I was put on display, I thought I'd show you who I really am." She turned to the CEO again. "It's been a great first week on the team. Thank you for trusting me with the project." The CEO stood slowly, placing his napkin on the table. "Your application spoke for itself, Emma. We didn't hire you as a favor to anyone. You earned it." Gasps came from the far end of the table. Someone dropped a fork. Dylan's mother leaned toward her husband, whispering something with wide eyes. His sister looked confused, as if trying to figure out how Emma, so quietly insulted all night, had just flipped the entire table dynamic. Emma didn't bother looking at Dylan anymore. His silence said enough. For once, he had nothing clever to say. Just hours ago, he had joked about her career. Now, he couldn't meet her eye. The ex sat stiffly, her smile replaced by a blank stare. She had been the one they all admired, but now she blended into the background, like everyone else. I guess she's more than just a pretty face, someone muttered under their breath. The CEO nodded once more, glancing around. You all might want to think twice before underestimating people. It doesn't reflect well on anyone. That single sentence hung heavy in the air. Emma picked up her bag without rushing. She didn't need to prove anything anymore. That part was over. Her goal now was to move forward without people who dragged her down. Dylan finally stood, stepping forward like he just realized what was slipping away. Emma, can we talk? Privately. She didn't stop walking. Now you want to talk? He looked helpless. I didn't know about the job. I was just joking earlier. Exactly, she said quietly. You joked because you thought I had nothing. The CEO opened the door for her, calm and gentlemanly. Cars outside, he said. Emma walked through without looking back. Behind her, Dylan's father rubbed his forehead. You really messed this up, son. No reply came, just silence. Outside, the air was cool. Emma took a deep breath, the night sky wide and clear above her. She didn't need revenge. She had the truth and a future far brighter than any seat at that table. Dessert was being served, but Emma didn't touch hers. A plate with cake sat in front of her, untouched and forgotten. She didn't have the appetite for sweet things after what had just happened. She had said what she needed to say, and there was nothing more to prove. I'll pass on dessert, she said quietly, standing up from her chair. People looked up from their plates. A few blinked, unsure if she was really leaving. Dylan looked panicked. His mother's lips parted like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Emma reached for her coat, moving calmly. She didn't rush. Her hands didn't shake. She looked strong, steady, and done. Dylan stood quickly. Wait! Emma, please, don't leave like this. She looked at him, her expression calm, even kind, but her eyes held no warmth. I'd rather not stay where I'm not respected. His face changed. He looked like he wanted to argue, but had no words to defend himself. For once, he had nothing clever to say. His eyes darted toward his parents, then back to Emma, like he was hoping someone else would fix it. The room stayed still. No one knew what to do. The power had shifted, and everyone could feel it. Just as she stepped toward the hallway, the CEO stood up beside her. If you don't mind, I'll head out as well, he said. Then, to Emma, my car's out front. I can give you a ride. Emma gave a small smile. That would be nice, thank you. Dylan stepped forward again, voice low and shaky. Emma, please. Can we talk after dinner? Just the two of us. She looked at him for one long second. Then she smiled, softly, sadly, and turned away without saying anything. No anger, just quiet, final peace. They walked out together, Emma and the CEO, while everyone else stayed seated and silent. The same people who had laughed at her earlier now didn't even look her in the eye. Dylan sat down slowly, his hands clenched on the table. His mother gave him a sharp look. His father sighed and shook his head. She was smarter than all of us, someone whispered. Out in the cool night air, Emma breathed deeply. The wind was fresh, the sky dark and open. She didn't feel bitter or angry. She just felt free. The car door opened, and she got in. As they pulled away, she didn't look back once. There was no need. What was behind her had already been left behind. As soon as the front door closed behind Emma, the quiet in the dining room broke. Dylan's mother was the first to speak, and her voice was sharp. Did you know about this? She asked, glaring at her son. Dylan looked confused and nervous. No, I didn't know she worked with him. She never told me. His father leaned forward. She didn't tell you, or you didn't care to ask. Dylan opened his mouth to answer, but stayed silent. The weight of what had just happened was sinking in. The girl they thought was unimportant had just walked out with the most respected person at the table, and not as a guest, but as his employee. Across the table, his ex stood up, grabbing her purse. I'm not staying here, she said, angry and embarrassed. This whole night was a joke. No one tried to stop her. The door closed behind her just as loudly as it had for Emma. The CEO, who had stayed behind for a few moments, pushed back his chair and stood. He didn't raise his voice, but his words were clear. I'd be careful how you treat people, Dylan. You never know who's watching. Dylan nodded, his eyes down. You let your personal opinions affect how someone was treated. That doesn't reflect well on anyone at this table, the CEO, glancing around before walking out without waiting for dessert or goodbye. The room felt heavy. The cheerful mood from earlier was gone. Nobody picked up their forks. The cake sat on the table, untouched. Dylan's father spoke again, low and disappointed. You embarrassed yourself. You embarrassed us. And you pushed away someone who had more class than this entire room. Dylan didn't argue. He sat quietly, staring at the door, knowing he had messed up badly. He had wanted to show off. Instead, he had been shown just how little he actually knew about the woman beside him. His mother shook her head. You never listened when she spoke. Now look. No one laughed. No one joked. The table was full of food, but the appetite was gone. And for the first time that night, Dylan truly felt alone. The car moved smoothly through the city streets. Lights from shops and buildings flickered past the windows as Emma sat still, watching everything go by. She felt lighter than she had in weeks, maybe months. Something inside her had shifted, not just because she left the dinner, but because she didn't let them break her. The CEO glanced over, a small smile on his face. You really handled yourself well back there. Emma didn't look at him right away. She let out a slow breath, then said, You didn't think I'd let them win, did you? He laughed once. A warm sound. No, I had a feeling you were smarter than that. She nodded, then leaned back in her seat. Her thoughts drifted to everything she had put up with. Dylan's little jokes that felt more like jabs. The way he corrected her in front of others. The times he made her feel like she wasn't good enough, even though she worked hard, learned fast, and tried her best to support him. I ignored a lot of things. At first, I thought he was just stressed or didn't mean it. But after a while, it became clear he just didn't respect me. The CEO listened closely. That kind of treatment wears people down, but you didn't let it. I wanted to believe he cared, she admitted, but tonight showed me the truth. He didn't just stay silent when they mocked me. He helped them. He gave a short nod. Some people only feel strong when they make others feel small. I've seen it before, even in the office. Emma turned to him. You noticed that too? Yes. Dylan has been skating by on charm, but that doesn't last. Character shows eventually. She folded her hands in her lap. What happens now? I was going to wait a while before offering this, but I think you're ready, he said. You've got skills, and you've got guts. I'd like to mentor you directly. Her eyes widened slightly. Really? You earned it. Not just tonight, but from everything I've seen in your work already. Emma felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real, strong hope for the future. She wasn't just escaping something toxic. She was stepping into something better. The car kept moving, the streets behind them fading fast. And so did every moment she had doubted herself. She was moving forward now, and she wasn't looking back. Weeks passed. The office had changed, and so had the mood. People had started to notice something different. Dylan wasn't smiling as much. He looked worried, distracted. Whispers went around about a big meeting being planned. No one knew the full story, but something was coming. Then one morning, Dylan got an email. He was asked to meet with leadership and HR in the conference room. His hands felt heavy as he clicked the message open. The subject line was simple: Team Restructure Discussion. When he walked into the room, a few people were already seated. HR was there, so was the CEO. And right at the end of the table sat Emma. She looked focused and professional. Her hair was neatly tied back, her notes in order. She didn't look angry. She didn't look nervous. She looked like someone in control of her place and her future. Dylan took a seat slowly. What's this about? The CEO spoke first. We're restructuring the team. Some roles are being removed or reassigned. Dylan looked between them. My role? Yes, HR confirmed. Your performance has been under review. After careful consideration, your position is being terminated. He turned toward Emma, eyes wide. You knew about this? She looked at him, expression calm. Yes. But why didn't you say anything? He asked, confused and hurt. There was nothing to say, she replied. This is a decision made by the company. He shifted in his seat, voice rising. Can we talk? Just the two of us? Emma didn't hesitate. No, we don't have anything to discuss privately. Dylan looked down for a moment, then up again. I didn't mean for things to go this way. Emma kept her voice level. I think we both know this didn't start today. Actions have consequences, especially when you treat people like they don't matter. The CEO nodded. We value people who support others. not tear them down. HR handed Dylan a folder with details. He didn't take it right away. His hands just rested on the table. For the first time, he didn't have a comeback. Emma stood up, ready to leave the room. She gave a polite nod to the others, then walked out with her head high. She didn't look back at Dylan. She didn't need to. Outside the room, a few co-workers passed her in the hall. Some smiled. Others looked at her with new respect. She had come a long way, not just in the company, but in her own strength. This wasn't just about losing a job. It was about finally seeing someone for who they really were, and knowing you don't have to stay small to keep the peace. The days after the meeting felt different. Emma walked through the office with quiet confidence. People greeted her with smiles and respect. Her inbox was full, some messages congratulating her, others offering new opportunities. A bouquet of fresh flowers arrived at her desk with a simple note, "To new beginnings." She didn't know who sent them, but it made her smile. Later that week, she had another meeting with the CEO. This time, it wasn't awkward or tense. It was friendly, forward-looking. She sat across from him, not as someone who had something to prove, but as someone who already had. "You've handled everything with grace," he said. "We're lucky to have you." "Thank you," she replied. "It means a lot." They spoke about her new role, the projects she would lead, and the changes she wanted to bring. He asked for her ideas. He listened. He treated her like someone who mattered, because now everyone could see that she did. When the meeting ended, she stood by the window in his office for a moment, looking out at the city. She thought about how far she'd come. She remembered the night at that dinner table, the jokes, the looks, the way she had been made to feel small. But now things were different. She was no longer the quiet guest who didn't belong. She wasn't someone's girlfriend being judged. She was her own person, with strength, skill, and purpose. She had faced public shame, but instead of breaking, she had risen. As she walked out of the office and into the hallway, she felt a quiet pride settle in. She didn't need to say anything to Dylan anymore. He had said enough. She didn't need revenge. She had her success. In her mind, she raised an invisible glass, a silent toast, not to love lost or time wasted, but to the lesson she had learned. "Thank you," she thought, her lips curving into a soft smile, "for the motivation." Because in trying to tear her down, he had actually lifted her up. She had found her power, and now no one could take it away. Do you think Emma did the right thing by walking out of that dinner and cutting ties with Dylan? Or should she have given him another chance to explain? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on it. And if you want more stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a moment of drama, revenge, and sweet success.